Hello and welcome to another video on the Rings of Power. This one is going to be about the Empire magazine covers that have just come out. I know a lot of people have done videos on the Empire magazines and shown their thoughts on it. I just wanted to go into depth about what I feel about them and basically talk about them a bit more. Okay, so the first one that they've done, it seems like the best one that they've got. And this is because Martha Clark has a Galadriel here, looking like a warrior elf maiden with a power pose going on. Now, this has been exclaimed in a few videos that this is kind of very much a male pose because of their anatomy. They're kind of like showing off in a way that it's what's called manspreading, and to see a woman do it, it takes a very different context, and that's why she has to be covered up here, because obviously if she wasn't covered up, she'll be flashing everyone, and it becomes more of a provocative picture than it does rather than a power picture. Now maybe that's what they were going for with this picture, I don't know, but this is meant to be Galadriel. Now if it was any other warrior she-elf, it might work, because I think that Martha Clark would make a really, really cool warrior elf. But to say this is Galadriel will take you back a bit, seeing as this is far from what Galadriel is, and they've even stated at the side here that don't expect the same Galadriel. Well, there's only one Galadriel, and that's the Galadriel that we get within the books and within what Peter Jackson's done. And to many people, and myself, that is the perfect representation of Galadriel. Within the Second Age, she wouldn't really be that different. I've gone over this in previous videos, but Galadriel will be married within the Second Age, and she'll also be having a daughter within the Second Age. None of this screams that she will be looking like a emo teenager ready to scalp someone. And this is kind of what the picture is showing. If this was in a different universe, or if this was a different character, this would work perfectly. But it doesn't really work within the context of Lord of the Rings. And that's why this is very much a silly picture to show, because it kind of, if someone going into this new and you didn't tell them like Lord of the Rings, they would have not known who this character was. They would have presumed that this is a cool character, and I think this is going to be the poster child, the predominant cover that they'll probably use in the Empire magazines, because people can see this picture and kind of like it for what it is, especially the normies that will go into it thinking, oh, this looks like a cool badass character for this series. But when you've got them hooked and they go back to the source material, or they go and watch the Peter Jackson series, they're going to be very, very confused that this is a Galadriel that Rings of Power's done, rather than the Galadriel that we know of within Tolkien's work. So this is not as controversial. Let's get to the other pictures. So this is the next picture. So this has been scrutinised by many, as I said, people that have covered the articles. This is the worst of the worst. I believe that it just looks like a bad Photoshop. Like, like it doesn't look like a proper picture. It looks like, I think it's Disa that's in this picture. She looks like a PlayStation 2 character. It doesn't even look like a proper character. It just looks like someone has CGI'd her into this picture, and then asked the male dwarf to, well, it's Durin, isn't it? It's Prince Durin, to kind of like pose in this. It just looks awkward and looks really, really bad. And from this picture, it makes me think that either someone at Empire or whoever's making these pictures or whatever secretly doesn't like the series and he's just kind of trolling them at this point. Because if this is what, you know, got through to the finished product, I can't see that they actually like what they're promoting here. I can't believe that they like what they're promoting here, because it looks absolutely terrible. The side heading on here says, Khazad-dûm is unlike anything we've seen before. Now, we have seen Khazad-dûm before within the Peter Jackson trilogies. He brought Khazad-dûm, aka the Mines of Moria, to life visually. And I'm guessing what they're meaning by this is that it's going to be it's going to be lived in. There's going to be dwarves residing in it. It's going to be full of different things. It's probably going to be lit up and whatnot. But generally, it's probably going to look really tacky. You know, if you can look at this picture and see that they don't understand the aesthetic. Now, if you know your Tolkien lore, you would know that Mines of Moria is not there for gold or jewellery or whatnot. It's there because it's a mithril mine, and so everything would be shining mithril and coated within that mithril ore, rather than what we've got here, which is an abundance of gold, which technically you would probably see within Erebor, the Lonely Mountain, rather than the Mines of Moria. But I digress. This picture it just screams really bad Photoshop. Now let's get to the next picture. And these are what they would say are hobbits or half-bloods within the CV series. What's funny is that the writer of this article states them as the precursors to hobbits. Now the half-bloods are they're part of the hobbit races, so therefore they're not the precursors, they are hobbits themselves. But if you take away everything from this and you tell people, you ask anyone who knows Tolkien, who's read Tolkien's work, what are these? They'd just probably say they're homeless people. Because that's what it looks like. It just looks like homeless people. And it doesn't really scream Hobbit to me, where hobbits are basically descendants from men. This has been established within the law. And so they would have been passed down things that wouldn't make them look homeless. They're also very much cultivators in their own right as well. They made their own hobbit holes and things like that. So therefore they wouldn't be making mud huts or looking like this. They'd probably have found a way to look hobbit-like, especially when they say they're round in the belly. And this, as you can see, they don't look like they've been fed at all. It just looks completely ridiculous. And say that this side here says, we're the traditional Tolkien little guy. Like, this is what the Rings of Power have done. They've put the Hobbit in there to kind of go, look, it's Lord of the Rings, we have hobbits. But Tolkien's work speaks for itself and doesn't need hobbits in there. Yes, his primary work, like The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings series, has hobbits in it. But it doesn't mean that his work is primordially about hobbits. There's a lot of things that go into his Legendarium, and people love the work of like the Silmarillion, of the Tale of Beren and Luthien, of everything that's not just hobbits, and don't really involve hobbits whatsoever, because as it's stated in the text, hobbits don't come to light or come to being until the Third Age. So them to be in the Second Age is, again, it's a reach from Amazon to kind of try and sell Lord of the Rings to the normies that are going to go, well, it's Lord of the Rings, it's got hobbits in, rather than going, it's got nothing to do with the source material of the Second Age. They have the appendices to, I've gone over this in previous videos, but they have the rights to the appendices at the end of Return of the King, but it seems like they're using none of that and kind of just making it their own, which they've already stated that they are doing. And this kind of makes you think it's not going to be anything that we want, and it's just going to be kind of a bad fan fiction written for Amazon and with the Tolkien name slapped over it, just to kind of show a message of, you know, as we can see that Galadriel is the main character in this story, or at least we can see from the trailers and the promotions and things like that, everything is about her, yet it's called the Rings of Power, which is essentially about Sauron, essentially about Celebrimbor, who makes it, and other things like that, and doesn't really involve her apart from her getting one of the Rings of Power. That's really about it. But it seems like they're focusing more on, this is Galadriel's story, but it's not Galadriel that you know anyway, so it's not anything to do with the stories that you know anyway. And then we've got random characters that we made up for this series, rather than looking at the legacy characters that we have and utilising them. So yeah, it just screams, I kind of know, well, I presume where the plot's going to go. I have my theories of where the plot's going to go, sorry. And so I'll do another video on that at some point. But it just seems that they're putting hobbits in there because they're going to focus a lot on the hobbits within the storyline. That's why they're putting a lot of focus on them. And so it's going to be Galadriel's TV series, as well as going to have heavily involved these hobbits. And that's why they're really, really focusing on these races. What's surprising is that you have these races. You have elves, which is Galadriel here, dwarves that are here, and hobbits. But we have no men, even though men are the ones that kind of are really, really part of this Legendorium too. But it seems like no one cares about them. We just care about these fantasy characters that we're just going to shoot on in there to kind of say, look, you know, we're a fantasy TV series, we've got these fantasy characters for you to consume. You know, just consume. Doesn't matter how bad it's going to be, or how unlike Lord of the Rings it's going to be. As long as it's got these fantasy elements, you're going to enjoy it, right? And so this is kind of what they're doing with this Empire magazine, is they're showing hobbits that are basically homeless for some apparent reason and look absolutely ridiculous. Bad photoshops that for some reason passed, you know, into actually being put on the cover. And then you have a warrior Galadriel who's being very masculine in this scene, even though masculinity is meant to be, you know, very bad. But we're going to love everything about it, as we can see here. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed my little rant. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe. If you want to see more videos, leave a comment, and see you on the next one.